Welcome to our channel. In this video, you're not just going to hear another story. You're about to witness the life of a man who was once richer than Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos combined. Yes, you heard that right. If John D. Rockefeller's wealth was adjusted to today's money, he would be worth over $400 billion. More than the net worth of the richest people alive today. But he didn't start with wealth. He was born to a poor family. He had a father who lied, cheated, and disappeared. He didn't get a perfect childhood, but he had something far more powerful than money. An unshakable focus, terrifying silence, and a mind that studied everything. He didn't talk much. He observed. He calculated, and he worked like a man possessed. He was called the most ruthless man in America, but also the greatest philanthropist the world has ever seen. So how did a poor boy with nothing become the richest man the world has ever known? In this video, you will learn everything, from his childhood and struggles, to how he built the oil empire that powered modern America, to how he gave away half of his fortune to change the world. And most importantly, you will learn how to improve your English through real-life storytelling. You'll learn powerful vocabulary, emotional expressions, and life-changing lessons, all in simple and clear English. By the end of this series, you will not only know Rockefeller's life, you'll be motivated to transform your own. So grab your headphones, sit back, and let's begin the story of the boy who was born in silence and died as the king of oil. Chapter 1. John D. Rockefeller's early life. John Davison Rockefeller was born on July 8, 1839, in a small farmhouse in Richford, New York, USA. He wasn't born into luxury. His family was poor. His home was simple. He didn't wear expensive clothes or play with toys. He played with dirt, rocks, and hope. His father, William Avery Rockefeller, was not a kind man. People called him Devil Bill. Why? Because he was a liar, a cheater, and a trickster. He sold fake medicine by pretending to be a doctor. He would vanish for weeks, sometimes months. He cheated people, and even cheated on his wife. He once told his son, "John, cheat before you get cheated." That sentence stayed in John's mind forever. But instead of becoming like his father, John studied him, watched every lie, every trick, every scam, and silently made a decision. I will never be weak. I will never depend on anyone. While his father was wild and dangerous, John's mother was calm, disciplined, and religious. Her name was Eliza Davison Rockefeller. She was a strict woman. Every dollar was counted. Every minute had a purpose. She taught her children hard work, prayer, and self-control. She said, "Willful waste brings woeful want." That means, if you waste time or money, one day you will suffer. Eliza would give John 1 cent and say, "Go buy bread, bring back change, and remember how hard money is to earn." John never forgot that. From the age of 7, he was learning business, 1 cent at a time. John had 5 siblings, but not all survived. The house was filled with work, chores, silence, and fear of their father. The children worked on the farm. John milked cows, planted crops, and helped his mother. He didn't complain. He worked with military discipline, even as a child. While other kids played, John was writing in a little book. He tracked money, counted coins, and wrote dreams. John was quiet. He didn't smile much. He didn't fight or shout. He simply watched and waited. People said, "That boy, there's something scary about his calm." And they were right. When John was 14, the family moved to Ohio. His father kept disappearing, making life unstable. John was forced to become the man of the house. He was only a teenager, but he started taking care of his mother and siblings. He found small jobs. He raised turkeys. He sold potatoes and candy, and he saved every single penny. One day in his journal, young John wrote, "I want to make $100,000. I want to live 100 years." In the 1800s, $100,000 was a huge dream. But Rockefeller believed in dreams backed by discipline. In 1855, when John was just 16 years old, he wore his only clean shirt and walked into Cleveland City. He went door to door, searching for a job. No resume, no contacts, just courage and silence. He was rejected by more than 15 offices. But on September 26, 1855, a company finally hired him. Hewitt and Tuttle, commission merchants. That was the day he later called his job day. He celebrated that day every year like a birthday. Why? Because it was the day the poor farm boy took his first step toward becoming the richest man in history. He didn't just work. He worked like a soldier. Arrived before sunrise, left after sunset, learned bookkeeping like a machine, never wasted a minute. He carried a small black notebook where he wrote every dollar, every expense, every lesson. Even as a teen, he believed, "God gave me money because I was careful with it." By age 20, he was loaning money to others. He had saved $1,000, a big amount in those days. But what's more important is, he had built a mind sharper than most men twice his age. Chapter 2. The beginning of an empire. John D. Rockefeller had saved his first $1,000. He had mastered bookkeeping. He worked with the discipline of a machine. But deep inside, he felt something calling. He didn't want to just earn a salary. He wanted control. He wanted to build something permanent, something that no storm could destroy. And then, something appeared. A dark, sticky substance bubbling from the earth. Oil. In the 1850s, people didn't think much of oil. They called it rock oil. It was messy, useless, smelly. But in 1859, a man named Edwin Drake drilled the first successful oil well in Pennsylvania. And suddenly, the world changed. Oil could be turned into kerosene, used for lamps. In a world without electricity, this meant light for every home. And John Rockefeller saw not just light, but opportunity. In 1863, when Rockefeller was just 24 years old, he partnered with Samuel Andrews, a chemist who knew how to refine oil into kerosene. Rockefeller invested money and created a company called Clark, Andrews and Company. But soon, he had a problem. His partners, the Clark brothers, didn't have the same vision. They were impulsive. They spent carelessly. They didn't think long-term. And Rockefeller? He was calculating every move. He hated waste. He wanted precision. So he made a bold decision. At only 25 years old, Rockefeller bought out the Clark brothers for $72,500, a huge sum at the time. Many people thought he was crazy, but Rockefeller didn't blink. Now the company was his, and he renamed it Rockefeller and Andrews. It was the first time his name stood alone. But soon, it would become the most feared name in oil. Rockefeller was different from other businessmen. They shouted, he whispered, they guessed, he calculated. They took risks. He removed risk. He studied every step of the oil business. Where to get the oil, how to refine it cheaply, how to package it safely, how to transport it, how to sell it better than anyone. And he had two secret weapons. 1. Efficiency. He believed every barrel of oil should be used completely. No waste, even the gasoline that others threw away. Rockefeller found a use for it. 2. Trust in God, work like a devil. Every morning, he read the Bible. But during the day, he worked like a machine. He didn't believe in luck. He believed in systems. In 1870, John D. Rockefeller took the next giant leap. He formed a new company, the Standard Oil Company. Why Standard? Because he wanted to create a product that people could trust, a standard of excellence. At that time, oil was dangerous. Fires, explosions, poison. But Rockefeller created safe, clean, affordable kerosene. And soon, every home in America wanted it. But success attracted enemies. Many small oil companies tried to fight him. They charged lower prices. They made big promises. Rockefeller didn't shout. He simply cut his prices lower until they collapsed. Then he would quietly buy their company. Sometimes he would send men to visit a competitor and say, "You can sell to us now, or we will drive you out later." This was called the Rockefeller method. Here's where things get dangerous and legendary. In 1871, Rockefeller made a secret deal with major railroad companies. Railroads transported oil across the country. So Rockefeller said, "If I give you a lot of oil to move, will you give me a special discount, cheaper than anyone else?" The railroads agreed. Rockefeller now paid less to move his oil, but his competitors still paid full price. This made his oil cheaper, and their oil more expensive. It was genius, ruthless, and totally legal at the time. Competitors screamed, but they couldn't stop him. By 1872, Rockefeller's company had grown so powerful. He launched a secret plan called the Cleveland Massacre. He sent agents to every small oil refiner in Cleveland and said, "Sell to us, or we'll destroy you." Within a few months, he had bought 22 of the 26 competing refineries. It wasn't war. It was surgical business domination. All of this power, all of this fear, came from a man who never shouted, never partied, never gambled, never wasted time. He ate simple meals. He avoided the media. He stayed focused like a laser. He once said, "Do not many of us who fail to achieve big things fail because we lack concentration, the art of concentrating the mind on the thing to be done at the proper time and to the exclusion of everything else?" Rockefeller didn't work alone. He surrounded himself with men who were brilliant, loyal, silent. He trained them to think like machines, just like him. They wore suits, avoided headlines, and moved like shadows. They were called the Oil Trust, and they were taking over America. But trouble was coming. By the late 1870s, Rockefeller was too powerful, too many refineries, too many railroads, too much silence. People began to ask, who gave this man so much power? Is he building a monopoly? The public didn't like it. The government didn't like it. And the media began to attack. Chapter 3. War against Rockefeller. The Empire versus the People. By the end of the 1870s, John D. Rockefeller was no longer just a businessman. He had become a mysterious force that controlled the lifeblood of America. Oil. Every lamp in every house, every train shipment, every factory, all powered by Standard Oil. He didn't just sell kerosene. He sold light, movement, energy. But behind that quiet success, something dark was growing. People had never seen a man like Rockefeller before. He never gave interviews. He never smiled in public. He stayed silent, worked in shadows, and kept growing richer. This made people curious, then nervous, then angry. Who is this man who controls our country's oil? Why can no one compete with him? Is he above the law? Newspapers started calling him the Oil King, the Octopus, the silent killer of competition. He had everything: power, money, influence. But now he had enemies. And the first attack would come from where he least expected. In the late 1890s, a young journalist named Ida Tarbell started investigating Standard Oil. Why? Because her own father had been destroyed by Rockefeller's tactics. He had owned a small oil business in Pennsylvania until Rockefeller's agents came with their quiet threats: sell or disappear. He lost everything. Ida never forgot that, so she spent years collecting evidence, interviewing former employees, and studying every deal Rockefeller made. And in 1904, she published a book, The History of the Standard Oil Company. It was not just a book, it was an explosion. In her writings, Ida revealed how Rockefeller made secret deals with railroads, crushed small businesses with price wars, used fake companies to spy on rivals, threatened owners to sell or face ruin. Her most powerful line? Mr. Rockefeller has systematically played with loaded dice, meaning he never played fair. He controlled the rules. He designed the game. The public was shocked. Suddenly, Rockefeller wasn't a silent genius anymore. He was the face of corporate greed. By now, Rockefeller's company had swallowed more than 90% of America's oil business. He had refineries, pipelines, railroads, barrels, stations, everything. So in 1890, the US government passed a law, the Sherman Antitrust Act, a new weapon to stop monopolies, companies that destroy all competition. But for years, it was only a law on paper, until the pressure became too strong to ignore. By 1906, the US government had one goal: break Standard Oil. As the media, the public, and the government turned against him, what did Rockefeller do? He did not speak. He did not fight in newspapers. He did not appear in court. He let his lawyers handle the noise. While he kept doing what he always did, grow stronger in silence. But deep inside, he knew the storm was coming. So he started preparing his empire for war. At this point, Rockefeller had created one of the most complicated business structures in history. Standard Oil was no longer just one company. It was a maze of subsidiaries, holding companies, secret partnerships, regional branches, each one legally separated, but all controlled by Rockefeller's board. This made it very hard for the government to prove anything. They had to spend years collecting evidence. But finally, in 1909, the US Supreme Court heard the case. It was one of the biggest legal battles in American history. In May 1911, the court gave its final decision. Standard Oil is a monopoly, and it must be broken into smaller companies. Victory for the government. Defeat for Rockefeller. Or so they thought. Standard Oil was split into 34 smaller companies, including Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, Amoco, Conoco. But here's the genius. Rockefeller owned shares in all of them. So when the companies were separated, their stock value skyrocketed. Rockefeller became even richer after losing. Some say his wealth doubled after the breakup. After the court case, Rockefeller finally became visible to the public. And the reactions were mixed. Some saw him as a hero of capitalism, the man who built modern industry. Others saw him as a robber baron who crushed the weak and played God. But no one could ignore him. even as an old man when he walked outside. Crowds gathered. Some people waved, some threw stones. Instead of fighting back, Rockefeller began to give away his fortune. Quietly, carefully, systematically. He donated to universities, like the University of Chicago, medical research, black colleges in the South, scientific discoveries. He created the Rockefeller Foundation, which still exists today. It helped develop vaccines, schools, and global education. He once said, "God gave me my money, but it is my duty to use it wisely, to help humanity." And people began to see a different side of him. The boy who had once counted pennies for bread was now giving millions to save lives. The year was 1911. The U.S. Supreme Court had just ordered the breakup of Standard Oil. A normal businessman would have panicked. Most would feel humiliated, angry, defeated. But John D. Rockefeller? He smiled. He stayed calm. He quietly walked away from the battlefield he once ruled. But this wasn't the end. This was a new beginning. Not as the king of oil, but as a man, a husband, a father, a man with faith, family, and an enormous mission: to give back more than anyone ever had. Behind every empire is a home. And behind the most powerful man in business was a family, one that very few ever saw. Rockefeller had been married to Laura Celestia Seti Spellman since 1864. Their marriage lasted over 50 years, until her death in 1915. But it wasn't the type of marriage filled with public romance and fame. It was built on something far deeper: discipline, religion, mutual respect. Laura was quiet, firm, and extremely moral. She was raised in an abolitionist family, meaning they fought against slavery. She believed in equality, education, and modesty. While John ruled the oil industry, she ruled the household. Not with anger, but with intelligence and structure. She managed the family budget, made sure the children stayed humble, and reminded John constantly, "God gave you money, but it's not yours to waste." John loved Laura deeply, though in his own quiet way. He wrote her letters, remembered small details, and trusted her decisions. They prayed together every day, discussed world events, and supported each other's missions, even when he became the richest man alive. He never bought her diamonds or expensive jewelry. Laura once said, "Too many women think love is measured in gold, but true love is built in silence." Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was powerful. And after her death in 1915, Rockefeller was never the same. He never remarried. He would sit alone in the garden, reading her old letters, sometimes crying quietly. The world had known him as the man who crushed empires. But in those moments, he was just a husband, missing his best friend. John and Laura had 5 children, but only 4 survived past childhood. Let's explore each one deeply. 1. Elizabeth Bessie Rockefeller, born 1866. The first child. Quiet, reserved, and close to her mother. Married Charles Strong, a theology student. Lived a private life away from media or business. She supported causes quietly: education, libraries, women's health. Rockefeller loved her gentleness and often said she reminded him of his mother. 2. Alice Rockefeller, born 1869, died young. Alice was their second daughter. She died in childhood, leaving a deep scar on the family. Laura became even more protective of her children after that. John, who rarely showed emotion, didn't speak for 2 days after her passing. He never spoke publicly about Alice, but he donated thousands to children's hospitals every year in her name. 3. Alta Rockefeller, born 1871. Married Emlyn Roosevelt, a cousin of President Theodore Roosevelt. She was intelligent, graceful, and supported schools for women. She didn't enjoy the spotlight, but was active in charity work. John respected her independence. He said once, "Alta has the wisdom of 10 men and the humility of a child." Fourth, Edith Rockefeller, born 1872. Married Harold McCormick, whose family owned the International Harvester Company, a giant manufacturing empire. She became one of the most powerful women in Chicago society, supported art, music, and public health. She was elegant, stylish, and a bit rebellious. Rockefeller once joked, "Edith spends more on a dress than I did starting my first oil refinery." But secretly, he was proud of her strength. 5. John D. Rockefeller Jr., born 1874. This was the son who would carry the legacy. Rockefeller trained him like a soldier. From childhood, Jr. was taught how to save money, how to pray, how to give back. At age 11, Jr. kept a record of every penny he spent. At age 16, he was working in Standard Oil, not in an office, but sweeping floors and carrying boxes. Rockefeller believed in earning everything. He once told Jr., "I will not give you an easy life. I will give you a strong character." Jr. would later build Rockefeller Center in New York, donate thousands of acres for U.S. national parks, and continue his father's mission in global philanthropy. He also had 6 children of his own, including Nelson Rockefeller, who became Vice President of the United States. Once retired, Rockefeller lived on a grand estate called Kykwit in New York. But it wasn't a palace filled with luxury. He woke up early. He read the Bible every morning. He took long walks at the garden. He ate simple food, oatmeal, bread, vegetables. Every day, he wrote letters of gratitude to people who helped him. He played golf and often gave dimes to children, smiling as they thanked him. When asked why, he said, "Because a dime might teach them the value of money." By 1913, he had already donated millions through personal charity. But now, he wanted something bigger, permanent, global. So he launched the Rockefeller Foundation, one of the most powerful philanthropic institutions in history. Its mission? To promote the well-being of humanity throughout the world. Through this foundation, he helped eradicate hookworm in the American South, supported medical research that led to major vaccines, funded universities and public schools around the world, built libraries, research centers, and even helped fund the United Nations. By the time he died, Rockefeller had donated over $500 million, which today would be worth over $10 billion. He once said, "Making money is a gift. Giving it wisely is a responsibility." As he entered his 80s and 90s, Rockefeller began writing his personal reflections. He didn't care about the headlines. He didn't miss the boardrooms. He wanted to be remembered not for how much he made, but how he lived. He wrote letters to his grandchildren, telling them to avoid pride, to love silence, to believe in God, to use money as a tool, not a goal. Even as his body aged, his mind remained sharp. Chapter 4. The Final Goodbye. It was the spring of 1937. The world had changed. Airplanes flew across oceans. Cars filled the streets. Radios connected voices across continents. America had survived the Great Depression. And in a quiet corner of Ormond Beach, Florida, inside a simple, peaceful home called The Casements, a 98-year-old man sat near a window, looking out at the sunrise. That man was John Davison Rockefeller, the boy who once begged for his first job, who sold turkeys on dusty roads, who built an empire from barrels of oil and then gave away half of it, now sat alone, old, frail, wrinkled, but with a spirit sharper than steel. He had outlived his wife, many of his competitors, and even some of his own children. But now, even he knew. The end was near. In his last years, Rockefeller no longer traveled. He spent his days writing letters, reading the Bible, playing golf with his doctor, and taking short walks. Every morning he sat in the garden for hours, watching flowers open, birds fly, and the world carry on, without needing him. He often whispered to his assistant, "God has been good to me, much better than I deserve." He was no longer the feared oil king. He was now just a man who had seen nearly a century of change and shaped it. In his final weeks, he had private talks with those closest to him, mostly his son John Jr., his grandchildren, and a few long-trusted workers. He told them, "Don't chase power, chase purpose. When you have more than you need, build bridges, not walls. The greatest wealth is peace." One day he called his grandson to his side and handed him a small coin, a dime. The child smiled. Rockefeller said, "That's how it started for me. With one dime, don't waste it." In early May 1937, he grew weaker. His vision faded. He slept longer. He stopped writing. Doctors said his heart was slowing down, but his mind stayed alert. On May 22, 1937, at exactly 4:05 a.m., in complete silence, John D. Rockefeller took his final breath. He was 98 years, 10 months, and 14 days old. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $1.4 billion. But that was in 1937. If we adjust that to today's money, based on US GDP comparison, his fortune would equal over $400 billion today. That means more than Elon Musk, more than Jeff Bezos, more than any human alive. To understand how rich he really was. At one point, Rockefeller controlled 1.5% of the US economy, a level of influence no single person has ever reached again. He earned over $1 million every single day in today's terms, even during retirement. And he gave away more than $10 billion, adjusted for today. No one in modern history, not Gates, not Buffett, not Musk, has matched that combination of power, wealth, and philanthropy. Despite his status, Rockefeller did not want a grand funeral. He had requested a simple Christian service with family, close friends, no politicians, no press inside the church. He was buried at Lakeview Cemetery in Cleveland, Ohio, under a simple headstone. It read only, John D. Rockefeller, 1839-1937. No title, no ego, just a name. And behind that name, an unforgettable story. Now comes the question, what did John D. Rockefeller leave behind? Not just oil, not just money, not just buildings. He left a blueprint for ambition, discipline, faith, and legacy. Let's explore the 5 pillars of his eternal impact. 1. He redefined what's possible. He showed the world that you don't need rich parents to be great. You don't need to shout to win. You don't need luck if you have strategy. And you don't need to destroy others. You can rise by building better. He turned a dying town into the center of the oil universe. He turned waste into wealth. He turned silence into strength. 2. He proved discipline beats talent. Rockefeller wasn't the smartest. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the most charming, but he was the most focused, the most disciplined, the most patient. He tracked every penny. He planned every move. He avoided chaos, and he stayed silent until it was time to strike. 3. He gave more than anyone in history. He didn't just give to feel good. He gave to solve problems. Hookworm, yellow fever, school inequality, scientific research. He attacked them with the same mindset he used to build Standard Oil. He believed, giving without a system is wasteful. Giving with wisdom is eternal. Today, thousands of schools, hospitals, and lives exist because he gave. 4. He created a dynasty without chaos. Most rich families fall apart after 1 or 2 generations. Not the Rockefellers. Why? Because he trained his children to think long-term, to live with purpose, to avoid greed, and to serve. Even today, over 200 living Rockefellers work in medicine, education, finance, environment, and global health. None of them became celebrities, but all of them carried the same mission: build, give, serve. 5. He taught the world the power of stillness. In a loud world, he stayed quiet. In a chaotic world, he stayed calm. While others chased noise, he chased clarity. He mastered the art of disappearing and dominating. He didn't waste time. He didn't need applause. He didn't care for trends. He lived slow, but left a legacy that moves the world forever. 7 life lessons from John D. Rockefeller. 1. Start small, but stay focused. Rockefeller began with just $1 and a notebook. No excuses, just vision and discipline. 2nd, discipline is more powerful than talent. He wasn't loud or flashy, but he was focused, organized, and consistent every single day. 3. Silence is a superpower. While others shouted, he listened. He didn't waste energy. He made quiet moves that changed the world. 4. Use your pain as fuel. His father abandoned the family. He grew up poor, but he used those struggles to become stronger, not weaker. 5. Control your time and your money. He tracked every penny. He respected every second. Success comes to those who plan carefully. 6. Give more than you take. He gave away over half his fortune to schools, hospitals, and science. Real success is not what you keep. It's what you give back. 7. Build something that outlives you. He didn't just build a company. He built a name, a family, and a mission that still lives today. You've just heard the entire journey of a man who started with nothing and ended with everything.